A dictatorship or invasion might be the only ways to solve America's drug crisis. In 2021, fentanyl overdose deaths achieved 71,000 in the country, 100,000 overdose deaths in total for the country in that year. It's the leading cause of death for Americans age 18 to 45. There's an article up at unheard.com about the way that fentanyl has made its way into the United States of America, something that you and I have talked about in the past. Fentanyl is a synthetic opioid made with precursor chemicals coming from China. In this article, they talk about Chinese drug dealers sitting on apartments, houses full of cash, for bringing in the chemicals that are ultimately made to turn and create fentanyl into pills that are flooded here in the United States of America. Synthetic drugs have now taken over plant-based drugs as the number one cash crop for Mexican drug cartels. Crystal meth, now bigger than cocaine for the drug cartels as an upper. And fentanyl, now bigger than heroin as a downer for the drug cartels. For anyone who ever argued that we should legalize drugs, including marijuana, that it would undercut the business of the cartels, now is a real look in the mirror moment. They've simply moved to more dangerous drugs, and they will continue to look for cheaper, easier to create, more dangerous drugs. The Mexican drug cartels will take back the precursor chemical business from China and India at some point. You know that they will. It's too easy and it's too profitable. For now, China and the drug cartels of Mexico are literally poisoning America's youth. I know I can't. I don't know if you can at this point. Live a life where you can't name someone that accidentally died from a fentanyl poisoning. In this article at unheard.com, they talk about Mexico is a narco state. It's incapable of dealing with the corruption it has inside of its own country. Several different presidents inside of Mexico have, quote unquote, tried. We'll never know how corrupt those presidents themselves were, but we know that every level of Mexican enforcement, from the military to law enforcement, is corrupt. Those ports along the west coast of Mexico, you can't stop those chemicals from coming in. The money is too big. And in the article, they say this fascinating line: the only way we're ever going to get our arms around this crisis, if we fully acknowledge now that legalization is not going to lead to the end of this poisoning, it's not going to lead to bankrupting the Mexican drug cartels. The argument is offered by someone in this author who was a supporter of drug legalization, that the only way we're ever going to be able to get a handle on this is either that a dictator arrives in Mexico or an invasion. Bottom line is you have to have force, something to fear more than the Mexican drug cartels. Because the entire apparatus, the entire society at this point is entirely too rotten to the core. If we together acknowledge that this is a problem, and it's a real problem, and again, leading cause of death for 18 to 45 years old, flooding at ever greater numbers in the United States of America. I don't know how we avoid saying that's a problem. Then we're going to have to ask ourselves, what's the solution? And I would love to hear the argument now of how legalization is the path to solving this crisis. Certainly culturally, we have to work on it, meaning in our families, in our towns, our communities. I know now I tell my boys, I used to think that the biggest thing I would fear for my sons was drinking and driving. It's not. Not with the rise of Uber. Now it's don't ever, ever, ever take a pill. Pills are so destigmatized. From ADHD drugs to anti-anxiety drugs to antidepressant drugs, kids are used to putting pills in their mouth. They're so destigmatized. People are buying them now on the black market to keep up with their own personal demand. All I tell them is, please don't ever take a pill. Because the biggest threat now is they're poisoned by some Mexican drug cartel with fentanyl. And if that's not a problem, I don't know what is. So, how do we fix that problem? How do we fix an entire country, a culture, a generation being poisoned? I don't know. But those are pretty stark choices put forward there on Unheard. A dictator or invasion. Hey, it's Will Cain. Click here to subscribe to the Fox News channel on YouTube. It's the best way to get our latest interviews and highlights. And click to subscribe to the Will Cain podcast for full episodes right now.